Hello, hello, hello. December 3rd, 2023. Yep, this is the Venus, I should say Pluto squares Venus video. But I want you to see it because it happens at a critical degree. Yeah, that's what makes this one interesting. Now, I have read in many astrology books, and I mean good astrology books, people who are just known to be in the past, great, these are people who are already dead and everything, right? But just great astrologers, people who were revered for their astrology knowledge and wisdom. And the teaching was there's no such thing like if Venus squares an object, squares your moon or squares your sun, it's never a bad thing, is the way they put it. Because Venus is considered one of the greater benefics. Well, it's the lesser benefic, right? Jupiter is considered the greater benefic and Venus is considered the lesser benefic. But I'm going to be real with you. It depends on your birth chart. It depends. You got to, yeah. Yeah. If you don't have your chart and you want it, comment to me below. It has a lot to do with your natal chart. Your natal chart tells you. So for me in my chart, my Venus can be my greater benefic, but that doesn't mean it's the same for you in your chart. It has to do with your birth chart. That's how it works. So in this chart, we're going to take a look at Venus and where she's at. You see her? So she's done being conjunct the South Node. The South Node was a release. Venus can represent money and banking, right? Venus can also, because she's in Libra, it's business partnerships, but it can also be marriage, like personal, right? Private and professional partnerships. And if Venus touched the South Node, that means a release of somehow, of some sort, some way of a value. So maybe you do business with a particular bank and you're like, I'm done with them. You don't like their practices and the way that they work or whatever. And so you just kind of dump them, right? You're over with it. Could this be a love relationship? Sure can. It sure can. It depends on what house. Where's the South Node? Where is the 23, 24? I think I gave a degree of like between 21 and 24 degrees of Libra for the big release because Venus would have been like when she got to the 21 degree mark, she was already talking to the South Node, right? So because we were trying to give like a 2-degree orb. So Venus being at that degree and it being a value of something that you value. And so Venus can be your love, right? And what it is that you love or who that you love. It could have to do with self-love, but being in Libra, it really talks about things being fair and balanced. So if a release happens, it's because Venus wants harmony. And in Venus's mind, give and take is a real thing. And if she doesn't see the give and take, then that means, okay, this has run its course. It serves no purpose any longer. I hold no value in this or you any longer. It's just not working. But Venus really wants harmony and wants to compromise. So she's willing to work. But when she touches the South Node, it can be where she said, it's not working. It's just not working. And it may not be worth it anymore because it's your worth, your Venus. It's how I receive your Venus, self-love, self-care, and how I show up in a relationship. And so if I've been showing up in the relationship, but hello, a relationship takes two, right? And if two don't show up and if there's no reciprocation going on, if the back and forth doesn't happen, that means it's not fair and equal. There has to be compromises. One person always compromising says, it will get old fast. And this Venus, because she's had a change in her values, this may be her saying, okay, I did once value this relationship and I no longer do. Now, for many of us, it can simply be possibly something simple. Like for me, a quick example for myself, it may be a client, like somebody that I did some work with, right? That I'm no longer working one-on-one with anymore. Because if we're thinking about our job and work as in partnerships, like if you were to go to a mortgage broker, right? You go to a consultation with somebody, you have a one-on-one. And that's what Libra energy is really good at, the one-on-one. So whatever you can think of why you would go to somebody for a consultation. Some people do it for weight loss. They have like trainers, fitness trainers. I mean, I think nowadays there's a lot of different ways thought, because this is really creative energy. So it's like, in any way that you think you can show up for somebody in their life and provide a service and make money from it, because you're giving them something of value and they reciprocate back to you and pay you, there might be just where somebody says, hey, I'm done with this. Okay. So that big release is over, and now we got Venus at 2833 here. And I picked this day, or I'm sorry, these precise minutes, because Pluto is at 2833 in Capricorn. And so Capricorn is a cardinal sign. So is Libra. You see, Libra's cardinal, which means they square. So let's go look at that. Pluto looks like in my chart system. Sometimes you might see me write Pluto with a P. You might see me write Pluto like that. That's valid. That works too. It's not uncommon. Sometimes people just get creative and you'll see different glyphs written a certain way. But if you look closely at this Pluto, it's like a little being, a little human being or something. And yeah, because like if this is the body and this is the arms, there's like a soul surrender. Something is surrendering. The arms are up in the air, right? There's like, I surrender, hands up, right? But typically these would be the arms. This is the head. But so what's surrendering, right? It's a soul surrender. Because when you deal with Pluto, you can't fight Pluto energy. Some say it's source. So if that's source energy, how are you going to fight it? Right? I mean, you can try, but you might not have much of a life after that. Like you may drown literally, because that's like being in the water and trying to fight the current, right? Unless you're an unbelievably expert swimmer, the recommendation is, even with expert swimmers, they say, let it take you. Just your goal is to just keep your nose and your lip above the water line. Let it carry you. Have your energy reserve for enabling you to breathe. If you waste your energy, if you expend it on trying to swim against the current, swim against the tide, holy crap, right? Good luck. That's what they say. So Venus is getting squared by Pluto, and it's at 2833. Now, it's a big deal because she's nearing a critical degree of 29 degrees. 29 is considered the critical degree. Okay. And we know after 29, then we get to like, 0 degrees of Scorpio. And that's a critical degree also. 29 and 0 critical degrees. So it's like this spot right here. We're like, well, what the hell is this? Well, let's think about it. It's not super hard to figure out, right? Business partnerships. And Scorpio is shared values. These are professional and private, but these are shared values. So it's shared assets. So it's not like my money, it's our money. So if I'm in a relationship or a business partnership and we are ending, if that happened, because for some of us, this may occur, the Venus conjunct South Node. And if you didn't have something within those digits, right? If you didn't have something angling and squaring that, like something in Capricorn at between 21 and 24 degrees, and the sign of Cancer between 21 and 24 degrees, you likely didn't even notice it. 21 and 24 degrees of the cardinal signs is where they would have felt the Venus squaring. I said 21 and 24. That's because that's where the South Node was with Venus, right? And so it would have created a square. Yeah, there's a text bubble there. I don't know how that got there, but it's there. So we're just dealing with it. And then Venus squaring Pluto. Well, Pluto is definitely big businesses and governments. So in my mind, this says these are businesses and governments. This is really a professional thing where we've got big governments and big money, big power, cutting ties. Yeah. Saying, I don't know if we can do this. Like, this may be like, I think this could be over. It's a possibility. It would take work to keep it together, but it's being changed and transformed by Pluto. Literally being changed and transformed by Pluto. Big business, big government. So we think about Libra energy also as lawyer energy. And I know in the United States, just within the US and in news, and we could probably put in some names of public figures where we're like, oh, we know who this is going to be, right? We have ideas because this could be like Libra's lawyers in the courtroom. Yeah, not rocket science here, right? Um, and so on that large scale, that makes sense. But what about on a smaller personal scale for you in your life, right? Pluto and Capricorn. It can represent if you work for an institution, like for the government, or can work for an institution like big business, a business that's just so big, right? And maybe cutting ties with other companies, with other partnerships, you see? But my only concern would be that if that happens, it's a possibility when those kind of things happen, when partnerships end, especially if it involves jobs, there's like a trickle down type of effect type of thing. There's a, oh, okay, so this partnership no longer is here. And so all of a sudden, there could be like maybe somebody sells a business or something, right? And so when people sell, it's not, hey, you're fired. It's these are the new rules, right? So there might be something like that that could possibly occur. Okay. Again, the degrees matter. So in your chart, if you have something at 28, right? And it's going to be the 28 because for Pluto to square something and for it to like really show up and for you to see it and feel it, you really follow Pluto's minutes, which is why I had to make sure I created the chart to match Pluto's minutes. And so normally they would say, if you look in your chart to see if you have anything in the cardinal signs at 28:30. So we're given the orb of 28:30 to 28:36, 28 degrees and 30 minutes to 28 degrees and 36 minutes. So I'm going to just put the minutes up here. 30 minutes to 36 minutes. So when we have a square, which is what we're talking about here, it is stress and tension. I've been hijacked. It is stress and tension. And usually it's intense because it's Pluto involved. Power and government, right? Big powers, big governments, right? And them saying, "Hey, we're here to we call the shots. We're the ones that call the shots." That means I got to call my mom. So, I wanted to also mention that Venus will then the next day be at 0 degrees. Yeah. Venus will, I was going to say penis. She does kind of turn into penis because she goes into Scorpio. So yeah, we can call her penis. On December 4th, Venus enters Scorpio energy. So at that point, you got Venus now in Scorpio. Venus is debilitated in Scorpio. She's not strong here. Remember, she's about peace and harmony, but she's weak here. The Mars energy kind of takes over, right? Venus may become more filled with think of a recipe on the stove and you got Venus and she's in a pot. You're making a stock and it's called Venus. And you're thinking of, okay, what am I going to add to this? Well, think you're adding all the Scorpio keywords to the recipe. Assertions, aggressions, wounds, intense, deep, right? So cuz Venus represents desires, I can cuz I'm always trying to it's easy for me to relate food to a lot of these things. Like our desires for food may increase, our desires in general for certain things, even if it's not food, but things that are pleasurable, whatever it is that you find pleasurable. Remember, it's in Scorpio energy. Scorpio likes to merge and bond. Okay. Scorpio is intense and powerful. Scorpio is penetrating energy. Yeah. And I use that word with intent. Like there's a reason I picked that word specifically. Venus in Scorpio. She takes sensuality to another level. It's kind of like that. I don't know if I should say this, but Venus in Scorpio is kind of like that. I don't know if the word sadistic, but where people might do things that are kind of painful, but it gives them pleasure because that's Venus, the senses. and the sensuality and looking for pleasure. But Scorpio wants to kind of, tends to want to battle, and it talks about weapons and inflicting pain even, right? And so Venus here, yeah, depending upon some other things in your chart, you may notice it. If you don't have anything in Scorpio, no worries. But by transit, there's still a lot here. And on this day, that the critical degree, it's intense. It just is. So we think of Mars and Pluto and Venus together, intense bonds, loves from the past, past loves. Now, these could be people that you physically, literally had a relationship with, or people that you met where you never really had a relationship with, but you kind of had like that resonating feeling and you didn't understand it. And many times, we always take those things and we're like, oh, it means this, it means that. Well, whatever. I'm not here to dispute that or to, confirm or deny it. I'm just saying we feel intensely about a thing or a person. And if it's Venus in Scorpio, she kind of adds desire becomes big, intense, and powerful because it's Venus and Scorpio. So the balance and the peace and the harmony kind of take a back seat, you see? And Venus might be a little feisty here, might be a little on the feisty side because she's in Scorpio now. Now, think about this. Think about Mars and Venus together. Typically, when you talk about Mars, Mars is that assertion and that aggressive energy, right? And so when we think about compatibility, masculine and feminine energy, many times there's like irritation and agitation. And sometimes, if the two people, it's like they need to be forced to work on something together, something challenging, so that they can see the commonality instead of warring with each other, like finding reasons to irritate each other and go to battle with each other. So if they don't have something that they're working on, something that they are fighting towards together, right? Then they will fight amongst themselves, you see? And so many times, the astrology software will even say it could be simply sexual frustration, even. And so this energy, for some it might be a fun time, and for others it might be like, oh god, right? But on a high note, Venus isn't real slow at moving, so she's going to move away from the critical degree, and she'll move to zero, and then she'll clear it, right? She gets off that 0 degree by the next day, right? So by December 5th, we're all clear. She's not at that super intense point anymore, but you want to just keep clear of the fact that she's riding through Scorpio energy for a bit of time. Okay. And so the Venus squaring Pluto, to recap, I know I think I forgot to do recaps on a couple of videos, but to recap that, it's stress and tension with somebody who's in charge, who's a big boss, and you surrender because it's Pluto. You don't fight Pluto. Remember that. You don't fight Pluto. Okay. You just simply say, okay, whatever it is what it is. And I mean, if I fight Pluto, I will wear myself out. It will be to my detriment if I try to fight Pluto. Okay. So you obey, especially since it's in Capricorn. Why? Because Capricorn is Saturn, and it says these are the rules. So if these are the rules, Saturn says, follow my rules. Because when we follow the rules, it's like mathematics. When I was a child, math was my worst subject. I absolutely hated it. It wasn't until later in life when I don't know, found a teacher that, I don't know, just taught it the right way where I got it and I learned to love it. But you have to follow the damn rules in mathematics. And that's when I realized, when I started doing astrology, and astrology, right? Astrology and math. It's about the damn rules. You have to follow the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, it's not going to work. It's not going to make sense. You're not going to get the answer. You're not going to get the reward. You're not going to find the solution. You're not going to get there. You have to have self-discipline. But many times we want to say, screw the rules. I'm going to do it my way. Well, yeah, you could do it your way. But promises, Saturn promises that if you don't do it its way, it will delay. That's Saturn's job, to slow your shit down, to throw obstructions in your path and to slow things down. But if you follow the rules, if you say, okay, I see you're asking me to stop, I'll stop. If you're saying I can't do this right now, I won't do it. If you're saying I have to go slower, I have to smell the roses, I'll do it. If you do what Saturn asks you to do, then Saturn rewards, but it doesn't do it immediately, right? But when we fight it, it delays it even longer. So just keep that in mind when we're messing around. And again, Pluto is you can't fight Pluto. So to recap, you've got December 3rd, Venus at a critical degree while squaring Pluto. And so look in your chart for your cardinal energy. That's Cancer and Capricorn, Aries and Libra. It's a high degree. It's 28 degrees. Okay. And that's December 3rd. The next day, Venus goes into Scorpio. Might be the December 4th. Yeah, the Venus goes into Scorpio. Okay. So Venus being in Scorpio is I believe it happens on a Monday when Venus enters Scorpio, and we'll have a separate video for the week of on that one. All right. So thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.